Hey, good evening and welcome to Having a Catch tonight with my good friend Andrew Fefer. He's got a glove. He's ready.
I'm ready.
I
Yeah.
got my gloves over there. I can't reach them though, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And yes, for those of you watching, that sexy ornament right below my basketball hoop is the fantasy football championship that I am competing for on Sunday
Oh yeah.
against Greg Maternowski. I can't touch it because it's bad luck. But if I win it, I'm going to do more than touch it on Monday. I'm going to do some things to it. But thank you for being here tonight. This is Andrew Fefer.
Yeah.
Andrew and I have known each other since June of 1982. That's a long time, my friend.
It certainly is. It's sad that just sitting here knowing that I won't get to put that belt around my waist this time around. But best of luck to you and Greg. And it's a thrill. Let me tell you, coming off a championship last year, it is a thrill to put that on as champ. So.
Do you have yours lying around, or?
I don't have it here. It's actually at Justin's place.
Little split custody.
Yep, wanted to give him custody of it, but he was very happy to receive it, and I'm sure he's taking good care of it as we speak.
Yeah, thankfully for me, sole ownership, so I get this thing 365, and actually, for those of you not familiar with how we do in the Fugazi, this is not a traveling trophy. So the belt that Andrew and Justin won last year, they get to keep forever. And I'm going to, if I beat Greg, I get to keep this forever. But again, it's a big if. We still got a lot of fake football to go on. But I think all the games are Sunday with the exception of the Monday night game. So we don't have a Thursday game this week. There's no Saturday doubleheader. We're just going to dive right into it Sunday and see what happens. So if you folks are watching this and you recognize Andrew from the worldwide interweb, it's because he is the star and creator of the greatest, in my opinion, bowling show in the world, Bowling with the Fef. And you are the Fef.
I am.
And so I would like you to take us through how this came about. Like you're, I don't know, 56 episodes in?
Yeah, 57. That's right, because tomorrow is episode 58. Yep.
Okay. So you're 50, tomorrow's episode 58. Mm-hmm. How did you get this idea? And by the way, this guy is who I want to be when I grow up. Like, check out his show. It's on YouTube. He also has a Facebook group called Bowling with the Fef, but your success in how you present this is part of the reason I wanted to do something similar. So you are the standard bearer, and I want you to tell us how this all came about. Like, when did you get the idea that you wanted to do a talk show about bowling?
Sure. Well, bowling is my life. I mean, of course, there's, family and job and things like that take priority. But when it comes to hobbies, I mean, bowling for me is it. I competed in high school. I competed, for 2 universities. I do tournaments now and then. Now I've bowled for more than 30 years. And it's just something that I've really enjoyed over the years. And it's been special to me really since I was 7 years old. So about, I want to say 3 years ago, 3 years ago, it might have been 2 years ago. I think it was the summer of 19. I work as a social media manager, content producer for an HMO here in the area of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is northwest of you. And if you're not familiar, we're about an hour away from the Minnesota border in the northwest part of Wisconsin. So my work sent me to a conference called Vidcon in Anaheim, California. It's summer of 19. We haven't heard of the pandemic yet because that's yet to come. And, I just wanted to go for some new ideas for trends and things in social media, video production, et cetera, et cetera. And the folks at this conference were all talking about live streaming and multi-streaming, which was really cool because I hadn't heard of that before. So I started listening and, piqued my curiosity, especially since it seemed like a lot of the people that were talking about live streaming we're really going on the basis of, this is something you should try. Don't worry about being camera shy. Just get out there and do it. You'll improve as you go. It's not, something that it takes a special kind of person to do. And it's the next big thing in social media marketing. I am, a broadcast journalism major. I spent 16 years in local TV, really doing everything except for the weather. So I've anchored newscasts, I've reported from the field, I've done news and sports. So the on-camera thing is totally natural to me. That's something I've done for years. For me, it was really just getting the gear and setting things up and coming up with an idea, a niche, as they say, and kind of rolling with it. So I started accumulating gear. We bought a new laptop. I went out and got a DSLR on Craigslist from a guy, north of here. Bought a microphone, bought an audio interface to translate the signal into the computer and all that. And, I listening to, people talk about live streaming this whole time and looking at ideas on the different platforms. And, one of the people that I follow on LinkedIn talked about how it shouldn't, your show ideas shouldn't be, facts and things like that. It should be more emotional. It should be something that, has to do with, with emotion and thrill, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, that kind of thing. Things that you remember not because but because you feel in your heart. And, people overcoming adversity. And those are all things that took me back to bowling. So when I had accumulated enough of the gear and the, know-how, I guess, I was, just a novice back then, I decided to give it a shot. And I tried it on a couple of different streaming platforms. Only did it to YouTube, just to kind of keep all my audience in the same place.
Sure.
And it's been fun. It's not something that I do as a job. It's totally a hobby. I do one show a week. It's just fun for me. I think it helps build community among bowlers, not only in this area, but also across the state and hopefully the nation someday. And it's just something that I love to talk about. Never really got the chance on TV. So now we can kind of make up for lost time in this format.
So walk me through the process. Now you're 50, obviously 58 shows in.
Mm-hmm.
How, obviously you have an idea for a guest.
Yep.
And then you reach out to that guest, and then walk me through the process from the time you have a guest picked out to show night, preparation. Sure. Do you do any type of pre-interviewing? What kind of research goes into this? I'm really not asking this so much for my viewers as I want to get better at this myself. So,
yeah, it's it differs every time. Some of these shows I kind of go little by little from the time I book a guest all the way till it's showtime. Other times I've got other stuff going on, and oh my gosh, it's Sunday and the show is tomorrow, and I've got to start from scratch and really bang out an outline and graphics and things like that. Typically, I'll book a guest through email, through Facebook, sometimes in person or over the phone if I have that kind of access to people who I'd like to interview on the show. And every show at the end, I'll have that guest challenge somebody else. So one person challenges somebody else. That person, if they're willing to come on, challenges another person, and the web just keeps on growing and growing. So in a typical week, I'll spend a weekend morning crafting an image, hopefully with that person's picture in it. If they're, if they were able to send me a picture of themselves, I'll put it up on both YouTube and in the Facebook group, and then I'll start crafting an outline. A lot of the format is kind of the same, although there are twists and turns along the way. Sometimes we'll talk about news events in bowling. Sometimes I'll talk about things that are coming up in future shows, a lot of stuff like that. I do have a sponsor, Chip Magnet Salsa, which is made in our area here in Eau Claire, and it's a husband and wife team that own it, and the husband is actually one of my teammates on my bowling league. So I talk about their product and then bring on the guest. And it's a pretty simple question and answer back and forth format. We talk about something that maybe is related to one of those current events, and then we get into their bowling story, really start to finish, how they started, what they did to come up through the ranks in either juniors or in adults, and if they were a pro, how they ended up making the decision to go pro and what that entailed. I'm not a professional by any means as far as bowling is concerned. I'm just a guy who loves to do it. Did some competitions in college and some small time local stuff. So I love hearing those stories about how people got to be national champions in college and how they got to be successful on the pro tour or at the regional level, things that I never had the opportunity to do. And then at the end, we kind of talk about what's going on now and what their future entails in bowling. And then I call that segment Off the Sheet, where I have them challenge somebody else. And then we wrap it up and go on to the next.
So your guest list that you've had is no joke. I'm talking PBA Hall of Famers, people that Wisconsin bowling fans would be familiar with. Tom Cole from the Bowling Game, John Magna. You've had the commissioner of the PBA on your show.
Yep.
Like these are like, can you? I mean, I can't even. Like it's just unreal. Like the names that you've had. Now, speaking of Off the Sheet.
Yeah.
With all these big names that you've had on your show, what are some of the names that you would like to see at some point show up on Bowling with the Fef?
Oh boy, that's a great question.
And you don't have to give us any spoilers if they're coming up. Just kind of like a dream. Give us like 3 or 4 that you think I got to get this person on.
Sure. No, I mean, when I started this, I was thinking, I'll talk to some of the locals about it and we'll have local people come on. And then, eventually you get to the part where maybe a friend of a friend of a friend is a professional bowler. And then maybe you get into the professional ranks that way. And, honestly, this is open to anyone who is passionate about the sport and has a unique story to tell. And we all do, all of us in bowling. I don't ask that people average a certain number or have a certain amount of accolades, because I think everybody has their own unique story. And it's cool to hear about the characters in our sport, whether they've gone to those, those high ranks of the PBA, or they just like to do it, in their own hometown. So as far as a dream guest, boy, it's tough to tell. I had a guy who is a manager at our bowling center here in town ask me who my worst guest was. And I had a lot of trouble with that because they've all been great. The stories have been phenomenal, whether they've been, people who are professionals, people who are amateurs. Some of these have gone more than 2 hours, and some of them have been maybe 40 minutes. But, in my mind, they've all been great content. Now, we've had technical issues. Some guests have had trouble connecting, and I've had to resort to, calling them up on a cell phone and holding it up to the microphone and interviewing them kind of radio style. But other than that, boy, I've really enjoyed each and every one. Now, as far as a dream guest, I love talking with the folks around here because I think that we have a great bowling community, even though this area, I live in Altoona, which is basically a suburb of Eau Claire. So you're talking maybe 80 or 90,000 people in this area, but we've got a great bowling community. And I like it when the local people come on to kind of spotlight that, because it's something that, I'm invested in. My favorite professional of all time is a guy named Dave Husted in Oregon. And I had a pro come on and challenge Dave Husted. I haven't heard from him on that yet. So I'm hoping at some point, maybe through, like I said, friend of a friend of a friend or whoever, word gets to him and he's willing to reach out and maybe come on the show, because he's somebody I'd admired really since the mid 80s when I started getting into the PBA tour. But like I said, there hasn't been a guest on this that I haven't really looked forward to talking to for one reason or another so far.
There were guys, obviously you and I spent a lot of time as kids watching the PBA.
Yeah.
There was a point where I wasn't watching it as much, but like the guys from childhood that I remember that I would love to see at some point, obviously Pete Weber, I think would be a fantastic show.
Yeah.
Pete McCordick.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's got a twin brother, too.
Yep. His name is Paul.
Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And if Paul's watching this, I apologize. I didn't know your name, Paul. I bet you're just as handsome and as good of a bowler as Pete is. But Andrew and I remember Pete it was the first time we had seen, I think, a 300 game on live TV.
Right.
So that just sticks in my head. Like, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Some local people, like you actually spoke of Brown Deer Lanes actually had to do a short-term closure and to get maybe the owner of that show, or I'm sorry, the owner of that establishment, Brown Deer Lanes, I think would be a fun show at some point too.
Yeah, and really the connections to Brown Deer Lanes are great because that's one of the only places that is kind of left standing from my early years in the sport. So, I always hold that dear because I have great memories of going to Brown Deer Lanes with you growing up, junior bowling, things like that. So, best of luck to them. Hopefully they all are well or get well soon and can open up again very soon.
Brown Deer Lanes is, of course, the building that you and I discovered Matt Mania. And I don't care, you can talk about the graphics all you want and how the technology's increased. It's the greatest, it's not the greatest wrestling video game of all time. It's the greatest video game of all time.
Yeah, and I'm not going to argue with you there because although I don't remember the details of it, I do remember the name and I remember going to that machine every chance we got.
All I remember from it, I'm gonna try to reproduce the play-by-play at the end of it, because you never won. Like you would win occasionally, but you always end up losing. But it would be the referee going 1, 2, 3, and then just like, oh.
Yeah.
It's also the building that I discovered Mid-South Wrestling. They used to air it at like 11 o'clock on Sundays. It was like the southern version of WWE. Like it was actually Jim Ross's first job in wrestling, and it was a different presentation than what we're used to as WWF fans as a kid. But I remember because we couldn't go into the bar, I would be like this, trying to watch it, trying to get like some updates because it seemed like we were always there on a Sunday morning.
Yep.
But so as a talk show host, I mean, you have a bowling talk show. Obviously, the love of this sport has to come at an early age. So what were your earliest memories as a kid of you discovering this game? Was it your parents? Was it a friend? Like, how did all of this? How did this love affair start?
Oh boy! So it's the fall of 1984, and I'm sitting at religious school, and they announced that they're going to have a bowling program that'll meet once a month. At that time, it was called Hadler Lanes in Thiensville, Wisconsin. It's a northern suburb of Milwaukee for those of you who are from out of town, and anyone who's interested can sign up. We'll go bowling. Oh, by the way, they have automatic scoring. Wait a minute. That means
in 84.
In 84.
Wow.
That means I don't have to sit there and write down and do the math and score. Oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And it turned out to be like this it kind of looked like half a typewriter, and you put like carbon paper in it and it would project it somehow on the screen, and you'd throw a shot and it would like you were typing a number on it. But that was what got me in the door, and once I started, I just didn't want to stop. After a year of that, I moved on to juniors at Brown Deer with you and did that for a couple of years. And then my family ended up moving to suburban Minneapolis when I was 10 years old. So when we got there, I didn't know a soul. But I knew that I was really interested in bowling, and they must have it around, and I got to keep doing it. And that's what I did. Got into a junior program there in suburban Minneapolis and ended up, competing in tournaments and things like that. Competed in high school. Went to UW Eau Claire my first year of college, my first 2 years. Bowled for the university for a year, and ended up transferring to UW Milwaukee and bowled 2 more years for the university down there. Afterwards, just kind of, continued with leagues and little local tournaments. But like you said, the love hasn't gone anywhere. It's still exciting to shoe up and get out there and compete in the sport I love.
Now, I know obviously the pandemic has put a wrinkle in, how often folks are doing this and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what is your schedule like these days? Are you still bowling, or has it been a while?
I am. When the pandemic hit, I was, very conservative about things, meaning I didn't want to, go in crowds. I certainly didn't want to bowl. And, early on, as this thing, started affecting more and more people in the US, I just said, you know what? I was on 2 different teams, and I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to, hang them up for a little bit. And a little bit turned into a year and a half. And I just got back into it this past summer, did a summer league, and now I'm in a fall league, and I'll probably end up doing a tournament or 2 here and there. I'm on a team for the state tournament coming up in February. And, it's tough. A year and a half takes something out of you, but, with practice, of course, it's like anything, the more you do it, the better you get. And, try and get out of bad habits and get my skills back up to where they used to be. And just one night at a time,
I've always liked, now I haven't done it in a long time. I can't even throw a year at it, but I always liked leagues.
Yeah.
But the thing I always liked more, and I don't know why, tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the idea of waking up on like a Saturday morning knowing that I have a chance to win something big today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
I only did, I think as a youth, I probably did 3 tournaments, but all 3, I had the same butterflies for those that I would for like any baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
And league was always fun, but league I always thought of as like a social, I was on your team for a year or 2. I did league. I think I did league 2 more years after you moved.
Yeah.
But there was always something about tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see yourself going forward, entering anything like those? I don't know how they work now. Like, if it's, you get 50 entries and the top 8 move on or whatever it is. But like, what are your thoughts about that format? It's different because on league, you don't have to be great every night.
Mm-hmm.
In a tournament, you pretty much have to nail it that day or that weekend. So what are your thoughts on tournaments?
Oh, I love them. I didn't bowl a lot of tournaments really, going from after college till about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But when I got back into them, it's like you said, it's a different type of pressure, a different type of a need to, perform well right away, figure it out right away, and execute and do well. And it's fun. As far as formats and how much it costs, that can vary. It depends on the tournament. Some are handicapped and some are just scratch. I bowled in a junior bowling tour before I moved back from Minneapolis in the early 90s. And in those tournaments, it was 8 games of qualifying, and they usually took the top maybe dozen or so into another 8 or 12 of match play. And sometimes there was a step ladder after that. So you learned to, kind of stay with it through a lot of games. It helps you improve. It helps you improve as a player. And when I got into tournaments, in my early teens, the draw was, the winners get scholarship money. So by the time I got to college, I had about enough for, I think it was an entire semester or a year of college, which was great. And that's kind of what got my parents interested in supporting me through this is that, hey, there's a financial incentive and something to to kind of drive them to help me be the best that I could be. But of course, the adult tournaments are different than that. They're for actual money, so some people can think of it as gambling almost, because you put down the entry fee in hopes that you perform well enough and win the big prize, which sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. But I'm with you on there, just because I love that type of competition, and to be able to do well in a tight setting like that of 4 games or 8 games is a really cool feeling.
So now, speaking of the format, I'm going to bring up something on my screen here that you can talk about. You're going to be doing something. All right, here we go.
Yeah, you got it.
There we go.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing something kind of unique on the 9th.
Yeah.
January 9th. Talk to us about this kind of unique broadcast that you'll be doing from Wagner's Lanes on January 9th.
Sure. So the Chippewa Valley Match Games is a tournament in my area in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, that really spans back decades. I want to say to the 1960s. And it is a tournament that brings together really some of the top amateurs in the Midwest. I believe they don't allow people who are PBA members to compete, but the skill level is just incredible. It's tons of talented bowlers from Wisconsin, from Minnesota, sometimes from Iowa and North Dakota, and they all descend on Eau Claire for this weekend tournament. There are 2 squads on Saturday, the 8th. So there's a group that will bowl 8 games, and then in the A squad, which is sometime in the morning, and then a B squad at, I believe, about 2 in the afternoon, where another group bowls 8 games. And they take the top 24 from those 2 squads into Sunday, where there are 12 games of match play. And then after the match play determines a top 5, those 5 will go into what's called a stepladder format. So the 5 seed bowls a game against the 4 seed, the winner bowls against the 3 seed, the winner bowls against the 2 seed, and then the winner bowls against the 1 seed for the championship. So the broadcast is going to be that stepladder final. That's going to be live streamed on the Bowling with the Feff channel on YouTube. It's scheduled to start about 1 o'clock Central that afternoon. Of course, you don't really know when those 12 games are going to end, and they're able to tabulate all the scores, so that time is kind of fluid. But right after they're done and ready to go with the stepladder, we will broadcast that live, and it's something that I've never done before, so I'm really looking forward to it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to be doing kind of play-by-play during this, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of an opportunity to kind of let it breathe, I guess you could say, and talk about some of these guys and how they did during the early stages of the tournament, and maybe what we know about them and their past success and where they're from and that kind of stuff. So if you remember, the Professional Bowlers Tour on ABC, back in the 80s and 90s, 70s, it went back quite a ways. That's kind of the format that this will be in. So it's kind of my Chris Schenkel moment, I guess. And yeah, I'm thrilled that the folks who are organizing that tournament have the faith in me to make it happen.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, who's on your next show?
So my next show is coming up tomorrow. It's at 6 o'clock Central. And the guest is a gentleman named Paul Wolff. He is the head coach of the Avila University bowling team, both the men's and women's teams. Avila is a private college in Kansas City, Missouri. And Paul Wolff is a guy who was challenged by a former touring pro named Charlie Tapp, who came on the show. He had been challenged by a current women's pro named Dasha Kovalova, who was challenged by another women's pro named Nicole DePaul. So that's kind of that kind of web of guests that I talked about earlier. How it just keeps growing and growing because of that part at the end where we have them challenge somebody else to be on the show.
Well, looking forward to that. Tonight I'm having a catch with Andrew Fefer. He's the host of Bowling with the Feff. Andrew, I want to talk about your move to Minnesota.
Yeah.
One thing that I find unique. Now, you're You'll have to correct me. You're about 6 years older than Justin, right? Your brother?
About not quite 5.
5. Okay.
Yep.
Your allegiances to sports teams kind of stayed with the Wisconsin teams,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a Packer fan. You're a Brewer fan.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Justin is a big-time Vikings fan.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's a Twins fan, and I know he likes the Brewers, but he's not a Packers fan.
No, not at all.
So how did this happen? Obviously, with the age difference, he grew up in Minnesota. So, like,
Yep.
I think by the time he was going to school, meeting friends and those influences, they were all Vikings and Twins.
Yeah.
But you stayed with the Wisconsin teams.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I mean, we moved when I was 10 years old. And I remember 1987. I mean, it's such a special year for me because I was kind of able to get interested in baseball through the Brewers. My dad was a Brewers fan. He cheered for the Braves when he was a kid, when they were in Milwaukee, cheered for the Brewers when they started in the early 70s and, all the way through my childhood. And so, I was interested in the Brewers because I saw, the love that my dad had for the team. And in 87, as they call it team streak because they started the year with 13 straight victories. And it was so exciting to really kind of start my journey as a baseball fan with that kind of excitement. And I'll really never forget, the feeling of seeing, them win game after game after game, and Juan Nieves, no hitter. It was just a really special time. So my brother, as you said, is younger. And when we moved to Minnesota, he hadn't really developed a love of sports yet. And I don't know that my mom had either. But when we got there, they started getting into baseball and football. And of course, we moved to the cities in September of 87 when the Twins are on their championship drive. To me, the Twins are another American League team. They're the enemy. So I did not cheer for the Twins. I mean, the 87 World Series where they were against the Cardinals, okay, whatever, there's the novelty of that. But in 91, when the Twins were back in the World Series against the Braves, I cheered for Atlanta. I did not want the Twins to win again. But as time has gone on, I've learned to like the Twins, and that's because, mainly due to the part that, that the Brewers are now a National League team, and they're not,
Sure.
Competing for anything during the season, other than, an interleague series here and there. But my brother and my mom got interested in football as we're in Minnesota, and my family did a fantasy football league. I, of course, had the allegiance to the Packers because, again, my dad was a Packers fan from way back, and he taught me to love the Packers, so I did. But they learned to like the Vikings, and that's kind of where that that developed. I got to say, I don't really agree with it. I mean, there's a lot of disappointment that comes with being a Vikings fan. I mean, although, you've got weekends free in January every year. But, other than that, I mean, I keep telling, Justin and my mom, there is always room, on the Packers bandwagon, if you want to call it that. And even if you don't, you can always change your allegiance. I mean, the Packers are our heritage, and, I'm proud to be a fan of that team, going back to when, let's face it, times weren't all that good. But, now it's been a real run of success for them relative to other teams in the league. And I'm happy about that. And the Brewers too, the times were not good when I started watching the Brewers and cheering for them, but over time, they've developed into a pretty good team with a nice string of playoff appearances, and hopefully in another year or two, who knows? Maybe we get back to the World Series and finally win one.
I feel like as Packers fans, we've been spoiled to think that since 1991, we've essentially had a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback starting for 29 years, 30 seasons, basically. It's just unreal.
Yeah.
And, like at some point, I think the Steelers have had like 3 coaches in the last 46 years.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers have had 2 quarterbacks essentially in the last 30 years. like the day where, we've got like a Mitch Trubisky type quarterback, for the next couple of years, it's going to be weird not being spoiled like that. It's just been unreal as Packers fans.
Yeah. I was at the Seneca Wallace game, and let me tell you, it's not fun to have guys like the caliber of Seneca Wallace and Scott Tolzien, trying to run through a powerhouse like the Philadelphia Eagles as they did that day. The Eagles pushed them around pretty good, and like you said, that we've had such a run of success. You're not used to seeing that. And, it's inevitable. You're not going to have Aaron Rodgers forever. But, hopefully another one comes along. Maybe it's Jordan Love. Maybe it's somebody else. But, hopefully we have that position solidified, because let's face it, it's the most important one on the field, right?
It's probably the most important in sports.
Yeah.
The quarterback position.
For sure.
So I want to talk a little bit about you and I, our childhood. Obviously, we met. I mentioned earlier in the top of the show, we met in '82. You moved in '87.
Yeah.
One of my favorite memories growing up was whenever because the Bucks were really good in the '80s. They were always one of the top 4 or 8 teams in the league. They never got to the championship in the '80s, but it seemed like they were always in either the Eastern Conference Finals or the semifinals. And I don't know why I remember this so well, but like whenever I would watch like a Bucks Celtics playoff game with your dad, if I ever said something that he was impressed by, he kind of looked at me as if to say like, yeah. And for like like an 8 or 9-year-old, that's like a big deal when a friend's father puts you over like that. I'm like, yeah, I remember like going home. I'm like, I said something that impressed Mr. Fefer today about the Bucks. So I remember those memories very well. And then tell me if you remember this or not, because I still, probably about 20 years ago, I made a personal list of the 100 funniest moments of my life. And so, some of them were movie scenes or SNL sketches. And then one of the things I had on the list, and I want to see if you remember this.
Okay.
Your mom made us lunch. We're probably, 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
And MTV was obviously running the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we had seen a video earlier in the day for Billy Idol's Eyes Without a Face. And you and I remember this as if it happened yesterday. You and I thought it would be funny if we would take those lyrics and basically do Mad Libs. So like we were singing like, nose without a face. And for us, this is like pinnacle funny. Do you remember that day?
I have vague memories of that, and I remember that I ended up getting the 45 of that. That's showing our age. Getting the 45 of Eyes Without a Face. But I know you've brought it up more than once, and no, that was kind of. I feel like that was kind of our thing, is listening to popular music, be it MTV, Billy Joel, Huey Lewis and the News. I can really, clearly remember, setting the little tape player outside and swinging on the swings, listening to albums like Sports and An Innocent Man and Thriller. Those were incredible memories. Yeah.
The thing I remember most about that, it wasn't necessarily that we were having fun with words. It was your mom was so annoyed with how funny we thought it was.
Right.
Because it got more ridiculous. And then that's something I passed down to my daughter. Like we were watching the Adam Sandler crazy Halloween character from SNL.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm crazy pickle arm. I got a pickle for an arm. Give me some candy. And one night and I'm not even exaggerating, for like 2 hours, she would go into her room and say like, Daddy, I'm crazy storybook shoulder. And it was the same type of like, this is my kind of humor. Like, passing it down. How can you not be proud of your daughter for not only picking up that baton, but like even taking it further?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's funny because those early Saturday Night Live shows, even for me early. I mean, I didn't get into it as soon as you did, of course, but those they're classic. They're so funny, and to know that something like that that I really enjoyed years ago is something that you can not only enjoy but pass along to to the next generation. It's really cool.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
One of the things that again, thinking back to childhood, one of the things that I remember, again, almost as if it was yesterday, we were bowling in your basement with the plastic pins, the multicolored pins.
yeah.
And one afternoon, I don't know, Saturday afternoon, we heard what we thought was Beat It on the radio with funky lyrics about food.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, we just kind of looked at each other like, what was that? And it turns out I thought at the time, like the radio DJs were just goofing or whatever.
Right.
It ended up being Weird Al Yankovic, Eat It. And I remember that started probably I don't know, 3 or 4 year obsession with Weird Al for me.
Yeah.
That eventually just, I think I grew out of. But I'll be honest, there was a couple nights ago, I like to make playlists where I was like, do I need to build a Weird Al, like essential Weird Al playlist? Do I need to do that? And I started looking at the old albums, like In 3D and Dare to Be Stupid, and I don't know, the one where he was fat. Was that just called Fat, or was that I don't know. It was like a fat Michael Jackson. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's breaking news. That's going to happen. We're going to have a Weird Al playlist at some point.
Yeah.
But I just like, I have a lot of music memories of your home. Like I remember when MTV would preview a video, it was always on the hour.
Yep.
But then it was like every hour for like 2 days. And one night, and it was always on a Friday. I'm at your house on a Friday night. And there were 2 videos that I'm thinking of. Where they previewed it at like 6, and then we watched it at 6, 7, probably 8. It was probably time I had to go home at some point. But the 2 videos that I remember were Out of Touch by Hall & Oates and Magic by the Cars.
Oh, yeah.
Where I'm not even exaggerating. It had a Super Bowl feel to it, knowing like this is the first time we're seeing this. And then in an hour, they're going to show it again, and they're going to show it again. I really miss that format of music television. They don't do that anymore. But I have a feeling that I would enjoy more music today if there was that kind of build-up where they would say, hey, at 6 o'clock, this, and then you can't see it again for another hour. It's not on YouTube.
Right.
Like now, everything's so accessible. Like it's nice.
Yeah.
Like I got into a rabbit hole a couple nights ago. All I did for like 3 hours was watch Billy Joel videos. Like I just hit shuffle. Like there's a Vivo playlist, and I just shuffled, and I was like, oh, this is great. But I liked back then when it was like a moment,
an event. Yeah,
an event, like the build up, and then like as soon as the video ended, there was just like this. Oh, I can't wait till 7 o'clock. What are we going to do for 56 minutes? We're not going to be in touch. We're literally going to be out of touch. And maybe that,
Yeah. No, I do remember that. And I mean, how many people, can you recall? I can recall so many when when MTV comes up in a conversation. Oh, they don't play music videos anymore. I wish they'd just play music videos like the good old days. I mean, I think there would be, demand for it, even though you have the, the access to YouTube and things like that. That was a special time, in popular music. And like you said, with Weird Al, there was a little stretch where my son was into Weird Al songs, and he'd want to hear them on a loop over and over and over again. And it was kind of fun because I remember that excitement as a kid, listening to that stuff for the first time, and knowing that it's really stood the test of time over all these years, and that it's something that he can enjoy now too.
Has he already grown out of that phase?
Oh yeah, they go so fast.
and your son is 8?
He's 9.
9.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was probably a year or two ago.
That's funny because we were discovering him at his age now,
Mm-hmm.
and he probably discovered him like what, at 5 or 6, maybe 6 or 7,
maybe 7. Yeah.
Okay. So his love affair was a little bit shorter than ours.
Right.
I remember I used to go to the library and like rent the vinyls and then rip them onto a cassette.
Okay. Yeah.
Like we're just like, oh, this is how you do it technology wise. You just hit record, and now I own this. And
yeah. See, I remember waiting for him to come on the radio and okay, shut up, DJ, shut up, and then hitting the record button, and having it on blank tapes that way.
People that are younger that are watching this right now, we're blowing their mind. They don't even know cassette, vinyl. It's just blowing their mind. Yeah. Now, I want to segue into something. We talk about phases. Now, in 1993, I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
And earlier that summer, Reggie White signed with the Packers.
Oh, yeah.
And I was actually, shortly after that, I was listening to a Brewers game on the radio. Mm-hmm. I think they were on the road. They were in like Kansas City or Chicago, and it was a long rain delay.
Okay.
And WTMJ used to, when they had rain delays, they used to go to like the in-studio host, and they would talk sports or, current events or whatever. And one night, and this was like a 3-hour rain delay. I don't even think the game got played. They were talking about something called fantasy football. Now, I had, in 1990, I think I played 1 year or maybe 2 years of rotisserie baseball.
Okay.
Which is different. Rotisserie is, you draft one team. There's no trades or waivers. You just one team, and then you measure how you do in all these categories. And at the end of the year, you see if you won or not. Yeah. What they were talking about that night, fantasy football, I was intrigued, and I started taking notes, what the scoring system was and this and that. And I proposed something to a friend of mine. And we, later that year, I think maybe 2 months later, we started, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you remember what the original name of our fantasy football league was in 1993? Because you joined in like 97, but we kept that same name for about 6 years. Do you remember the name of it?
Oh, man. It escapes me. I remember because you asked me to essentially be the videographer at the draft. It would have been in the
95
or 6, yeah, probably 5.
I think you may have done draft. 2. I think 95 at the bank, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and then 96 I think was at our apartment. I think you had done that too.
Yeah.
But so, do you want to take a guess?
Oh gosh, I know I'd get it wrong.
As soon as you hear it, you're gonna recognize it.
Yep.
Well, I was known as Big Joe Boo.
Yeah.
Joe Boo, Joe Buckholz. Mm-hmm. So it was just Big Joe Boo's Fantasy Football League.
Okay.
And then in 99, I had just seen Donnie Brasco.
Okay.
And my favorite scene is the Fugazi scene.
Yeah.
And I started using that word like every other sentence.
Yeah.
And someone just said, you're a Fugazi. And I said, that's it.
That's it.
We're going to call it Fugazi Fantasy Football going forward. And that's the name we've kept now. I mean, we've kept that name within the umbrella of fantasy football now for over 20 years. Fugazi Fantasy Football.
It's amazing how long that this league has gone on.
Well, I want to tell you a story, and I don't even think you're aware of this. So you've been with me since 97. I think you took a couple years off to go to college.
Yep.
So like 03-ish, right around there, I think you left us. But you've been with us. You're a Hall of Famer. You and your brother are Hall of Famers. You've won, I think between you and Justin, I think you've won 3 times, right? Or twice. Let's see. You won in 04.
Yep. That sounds right. I think 3 times because he won the one.
He won it in 17 on his own, and then you guys won the Belt League last year.
Yeah.
So you guys are Hall of Famers. Now, I don't know if you know this story, but about, I don't even know the year, '06, I would say.
Okay.
So we'd been doing it about 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
And to think that's over half of a life ago as far as fantasy goes.
Yeah.
One summer, the guy that created this league with me, his name was Mike Moser. Him and I were in his basement in like mid-July.
Okay.
And I said, when we started this league in '93, I really didn't think it would last more than a year. I thought it was going to be like, all right, we're all going off to do our thing. This is how we say goodbye to each other, and then we're going to get our jobs and have our kids. And now we're going on, next year is going to be year 30.
Wow.
But in 2006 or 7, I said to Mike, what would happen if we didn't do a league for a year? Do you think we'd miss it? Because I feel like we need to not do it for a year. And if we don't miss it, then maybe we grow up a little bit. And I think I had just become a father. I think he became a father about a year and a half earlier. So we kicked around that idea. Let's just not do a league. I'm not going to make an announcement. I'm just not going to schedule anything. I'm not going to I'm not going to make a schedule. I'm not going to send an email. Yeah. And we agreed on that. And then about a month later, like mid-August, right around the time you start, getting ready for that.
Right.
I'm in this same basement, and I said, we're not really going to not do this. He goes, no. And that night in his basement on like using almost like a Sudoku like template, I made the schedule. I sent the email and I said, hey, sorry for the late notice, but the draft is, this date and this and that. And we haven't looked back.
Yeah.
Now, 29 years in, quite honestly, I could not imagine not having a draft, not waking up on Sunday, tinkering with my flex. I want to ask you a question because my answer is quite sad. How much time in your adult life, because we started this, in 95, you would have been, 18, 19.
Yeah.
I started when I was 18. How much time in your life devoted to roster management on the toilet?
Oh, man.
I just made Jen blush right away. She can't hear you, but she can hear me.
And that's really all you need at this point in the show.
Yeah, you want to get one live reaction from the peanut gallery here. I want to hear your estimate, and then I'm going to tell you mine is sad.
Oh my gosh! Just on the toilet?
Well, you can. That's when I do most of my tinkering. Ruxin used to call it the tinker stinker. Have you ever seen the league, by the way?
No, still haven't. Remember we talked about that? Yeah, the last time I was in town, you guys were like, "You have to see that."
You do have to see. If anyone here is watching, is not familiar, the league is a fantasy football sitcom on FX. It went about 6-7 years.
Yeah.
But here's my. First of all right. What is your estimate?
Oh gosh.
I'm talking now 23, 24 years of playing.
Okay. And on the toilet or off?
On or off?
Gosh, just hours and hours and
hours. I would say I've lost a year or two of my life. Because it's not just smashing buttons on the phone. It's the prep. Right. It's the going on Twitter. Who's what's going on? It's too much.
Is it? Is 1,000 hours?
I think it's a fair estimate.
A fair estimate? I know it sounds like such a huge number, but for all those years, and you're talking about my adult life, and I started fantasy football,
with your family.
With my family, and it was in middle school, like late middle school, early high school. So there's that too, paper and pencil, and you got stats from the newspaper and all that stuff. But yeah, it's got to be somewhere near 1,000 hours. My brother and I tend to come up with similar conclusions on some of that stuff, but there are times when we go back and forth a little bit and we talk it through, and sometimes we'll go with his idea and sometimes we'll go with mine. And he did win that championship in 17, but it's something, when I wasn't doing it, I really missed it. like you said, it's it just, for me, and I'm sure for you, makes the games just so much more interesting.
I mean, personally, you know me, I'm a baseball guy. I
Yeah.
live and breathe baseball. But for me personally, if you take fantasy football out of the equation for the NFL, I
Yeah.
really am not that interested. Like, I'm a Browns fan,
Hmm.
so I watch Browns games, and I keep an eye on the Packers. But
Yeah.
there's no way you're going to get me to watch Jacksonville, Arizona on a Thursday night unless I've got the kicker and I've got some cheddar on the line or a belt or something like that.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be much. I mean,
No,
just as long as there's something to it. And I love going to bowling because I bowl on Thursdays, and I know one of my teammates is in fantasy too. And hey, did you get your lineup set? And sometimes he'll scramble to get it set, which is great that we start at 6:30, so he can do that before the game starts. But yeah, when we've got guys in that game, it's just takes on a different level of interest, because it makes those odd games that are have nothing to do with the Packers from you, the Browns for you, so much fun.
someone was talking to me today at work about something, work related, and I just spaced out. And she's like, "Are you even listening to me?" And I said, "I'm not. I'm not," because I'm thinking about, which receiver. Do I
Yeah.
stick with Tyler Boyd? Do I stick? And I said, just come at me again, or why don't you just send a text, because I'm still not going to be listening.
Right.
It really consumes me. And then when you get this far, and again, if you're paying attention at home, I can't touch it, but there it is. I'm playing for this on Sunday. It's
she's a beaut.
If I think I've said this privately to you,
Yeah.
I'm going to say it right now in front of. I think we have 2 viewers right now. If I win this, as I make eye contact with Jen, she's looking at me as if to say, "Don't say it, don't say it." If I win this on Sunday, I'm going to make love to it on Monday.
Oh my gosh.
On live, it's going to go live to YouTube. It's going to go live within, not within the Utopian Baseball universe, but
yeah,
there it is.
Some other channel that no one will ever find.
No. So yeah, it has consumed my life.
Yeah.
So tonight I want to end with something. Obviously, I'm wearing a Brewers hat. You're wearing a Brewers shirt.
Yep.
This is the Utopian Baseball universe. Pretty soon, and you're going to be my Brewers guy until the end of time.
Yeah, and I'm proud of that.
No,
not a lot of success Utopian wise, but I'm somewhat used to that. Having been a fan for so long.
But what I want to do, and we're going to make a lot of official decisions when we do our Brewers team preview show. And by the way, this year we're not going to do 32 straight nights of shows. By the time that was over, I was exhausted. We're going to do 4 teams, 2 nights a week. So we're going to do 2 shows, basically covering 8 teams for the week, and we're going to do that for a month. So it'll be one night it'll be Brewers and 3 other teams, and we'll get 4 people on there. So, but you're going to be my Brewers guy, and I want to just kind of pick your brain here.
Yeah.
Because this isn't my universe. This is your universe. This is our utopia.
Yeah.
I've got some holes to fill.
Okay.
So at catcher, we've got Jonathan Lucroy and B.J. Surhoff. Who would you like to see become a third catcher? Now, again, we're not making anything official tonight, but is there someone from childhood? Is there a current catcher? Who would you like to see possibly fill that role for 2022? The only name that comes to mind for me, just because he was the first catcher I was familiar with, was Charlie Moore.
That's what I was thinking.
But then they moved him to right field, and obviously we have Ted Simmons on the Cardinals. But would Charlie Moore, do you think, be a solid third choice at the catcher position?
I think that would be a solid third choice because, like you said, I remember, him, or at least hearing about him being, the primary guy. Ned Yost was his backup, if I remember correctly.
Yost
he may have been Simmons' backup.
I think Yost was Simmons' backup, and then I think shortly after the World Series, I think Yost went on to Montreal and became a backup there. And you had Bill Schroeder in the mix for a little bit. And what about a Bill Schroeder?
Bill Schroeder's not bad, but I feel if you get too recent, you end up with guys who are maybe on other teams. I mean, Yasmani Grandal might be on a different team for you, right?
I actually, because he had put together a nice string of years, and I wanted to pad some of the lesser teams. I put him on Montreal.
Okay. Yeah,
He's
and
gonna,
that's fair.
he'll get a start a week behind Gary Carter.
Yeah.
I thought about Manny Pena, but then he signed with the Braves.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm thinking, like, would Omar Narvaez? I think he's been with us like 3 or 4 years. That might be an option.
Yeah.
But as far as starting pitchers, a lot of it's from our childhood: Teddy, Nieves, Pete Vukovich.
Yeah.
I think
Ben Sheets.
I think the most I have Woodruff.
Okay.
And again, this decision was made prior to him winning the Cy Young, but Corbin Burns I have on Montreal because I gotta fill that. I gotta fill Montreal and Durham somehow with some viable options. But who are some pitchers like? Do we Jamie Navarro? Who like I don't know.
Bill Wegman.
Bill Wegman. Who's the guy that won? He won like 18 for us one year. Lefty.
Well, I was going to ask: is Caldwell in the league right now?
He is.
He is. Okay.
He struggled a little bit in both seasons, so he hasn't pitched an entire season, but he's going to stay on the roster.
Okay.
Who's the guy though that I'm thinking of? He was a lefty. He won like 18 games with us. Kind of a soft throwing guy. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Was it?
Oh, Chris Capuano.
Oh yeah.
I think he could be an option.
Yeah, I was thinking Manny. What was his last name? You know who I'm thinking of. He ended up with Cincinnati after a while.
Oh, Manny Pena.
Was he a Manny Pena too?
Manny Parra.
Manny Parra. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Or as Bob Uecker calls him, Manny Parra.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Capuano would be solid.
Maybe a Dave Bush, Sean Markham type. I don't know. Just someone that people are familiar with. Right. Now, the big question is, I made a decision at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. We're not going to fire any manager after 2 years.
Okay.
But there are a handful of teams that haven't made the playoffs, and the Brewers are one of them.
Yep.
What would an Andrew Fefer like to see after year 3 if the Brewers miss out again? Do you hire a Harvey Keene? Do you bring in a Tom Trebelhorn? I really can't think of another name. I think that would be
because Counsell is the manager right now.
Counsell's the manager. Do we have Counsell take a front office position and bring in someone, a name, if you will? Or do we bring in like a John McGraw, who's not managing a team right now, or a Joe McCarthy?
I think those are interesting choices, but I like the concept of moving him to the front office and bringing on someone from the past, a Harvey Keene, Tom Trebelhorn, Buck Rogers, somebody like that.
Bamberger?
Bamberger, that has history with the team and some measure of success, and see how that plays out before you go, searching from the outside, for a McGraw or somebody like that.
And certainly not Davy Lopes.
Yeah, I'd go probably Phil Garner before.
Garner before Lopes. We're not going to list the least likely, but Lopes. It's not going to be Davy Lopes.
Right.
All right. So the last thing I want to ask you tonight. You recently told me that one of the recent Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes was one of your favorites ever. It was called "What Have I Done?" So good. I think it was fantastic.
So funny.
I would easily put it in my top 5 or 10.
Yeah.
It was, just so good. But like, other than that episode, going into that, what would you say is your favorite moment or episode all time on that show?
Oh boy, there are so many to choose from. I loved the accidental text on purpose. That was hilarious. I love that one. I love the one where he accidentally trips Shaquille O'Neal, and he's in the hospital, and he goes and visits him, and he's trying to say that peanut butter is a dairy product. I love that show. I love the season where the season opening show where he's in the producers and he uses the doctor's office phone and gets caught in the act by the guy that plays the library cop in Seinfeld. That's a great one. Oh boy. There are so many. I mean, I can't pick just one.
There's too many.
Yeah, those are some of my favorites for sure. Yeah.
For me, the one moment that sticks out above anything else was the opening night at the restaurant.
Okay.
When the chef that had Tourette's, and then Larry had that moment of solidarity where he's like, "All right, I need to do this," and everyone just starts swearing.
Yep.
I'm not going to repeat
right
verbatim, but just one of the greatest scenes in television history.
The one where he accuses Susie of not respecting wood because she left or Julia Louis-Dreyfus for leaving a cup on the wooden table and making one of those rings that doesn't come off.
Brilliant.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, so we're gonna do something. I'm gonna steal something from your show.
Okay.
We're gonna steal off the sheet. So I'm gonna send you a residual check. Andrew Fefer.
Yes.
Who would you like to see have a catch with me on a future episode? It could be it could be a player, it could be a member of the group, it could be literally anyone. We make the rules here.
So I can bring one that's totally out of left field.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And by the way, whoever you say,
yes,
starting tomorrow, I will get the ball rolling. Whoever it is,
you'll be in their ear until they
even if they're not on Facebook, I will stalk like crazy. So give me a name or two.
All right.
You'd like to see have a catch with your buddy Joey.
Are you ready for this?
I got a pen.
I want you to get Kenneth Craig on to have a catch for you.
I can do that. Kenneth. So Kenneth is easily the funniest non-celebrity I've ever met. We could do a Kenneth, even if Kenneth can't do the show.
Yeah.
We might just have a Kenneth Craig tribute show.
Yeah.
I can't even go into like, oh my God, that list I talked about at the beginning of the show, the top 100. He's on that list probably 5 times.
I believe it. Yeah.
He's on that list more than Will Ferrell.
I didn't get a whole lot of time getting to know him, but I remember hanging out with you and him at the beginning of school days at Brown Deer Middle School, and singing Beastie Boys and making fun of teachers, and it was that's just burned into my childhood memories. And we're Facebook friends. I haven't really talked with him since that, but I'd love to see him on the show having a catch with you, kind of get caught up on what he's up to these days, and if he remembers that stuff from 4th grade for me, 5th grade for you too.
He actually, I actually ran into him a couple times in the last 30 years. He was, I think at some point he was working at a car dealership, doing really well.
Okay.
And I asked him about some of that stuff from childhood. He got real bashful. I think he's grown up a little. I think he's far exceeded. Like I'm essentially still 12 years old.
Right. Yeah.
And he's grown up. But I'm going to see what I can do to get Kenneth Craig. Anybody else you want to see?
Boy, who else? Who else? Can we get into the baseball ranks here?
Of course, there's no wrong answers.
Let me throw out a former major leaguer who I know has been on live stream shows before, although he's never been on mine, and I'd like to see him come on mine one of these days. But I'd like to see former major league pitcher John Burkett, who is also a professional bowler.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think he's been in some of the PBA 50 events recently.
Interesting.
But yeah, he's a very talented bowler.
One of the guys I was thinking of earlier was Mookie Betts for your show.
Oh, yep. Absolutely.
Big time bowler.
If anybody knows him, send him my way. I would love to talk to Mookie Betts. Yeah.
You know what? There's people in this group that could probably make that happen. Like, maybe I'll do some some work on that
Yeah.
on this end and try to make that happen for you.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you for having a
Yeah.
catch with me tonight.
Yeah, no, it's been a blast, and I love the format. I love the past shows that I've seen, and just how it's kind of off the cuff and informal. I think it's a lot of fun for the guests, and I hope it's a lot of fun for the folks who are watching tonight.
And what time? Your show tomorrow is at 6 p.m. Central?
6 o'clock Central, Bowling with the Fef. You can just look it up on YouTube and subscribe and like and all that, good stuff that you've already done, for the Utopian channel, of course, because it's one of the best YouTube channels out there.
So check out Bowling with the Fef tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Next week's guest is going to be David Rubin. You know him from the 401 Sports shows. We might be going live tomorrow. David is going to be giving us a tour of his Mets memorabilia. He's a big-time Mets fan. It's going to be like an MTV Cribs, if you will.
There you go.
We're going to see a lot of David's fun stuff. That's going to be January 4th. We'll get you a time very shortly. But again, Andrew, thank you for having a catch with me tonight. And we'll see everybody tomorrow with 401 Sports with David Rubin. Good night, everybody.
Good night.